All right. Welcome, everyone, to a live debate on whether we should criminalize burning the American flag. My name is Micah Kunkel, and I will be your moderator for this evening. In the affirmative, we have Tyler Segal, who got his bachelor's in political science and now currently writes on political issues through his Substack, Times and Headlines, where he analyzes the stories shaping today's headlines. On the negative, we have Tyler Kakuno, who is a philosophy student and who has appeared on Jubilee Surrounded, including the episodes featuring Ben Shapiro and Piers Morgan. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining. And so today the debate is format is going to go like this. Tyler Segal is going to have a 10-minute affirmative opener, followed by 5 minutes of cross-examination from Tyler K. And then there will be a 10-minute negative response, followed by another 5 minutes cross-examination, followed by a 5-minute affirmative response, then a 10-minute negative response in closing, and then a 5-minute affirmative closing. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to Tyler Segal. And Tyler, I don't know if you have a timer yourself, but I will also be timing you as well. And I will, I think, put a 1-minute timer when you have 1 minute left. Does this sound good to you guys?
Sounds very fair. And we don't have to take the whole time if we don't want to in the end, right?
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to use all your time if you don't want to.
Okay. And I don't have to give my time to him.
No.
And vice versa. Yeah.
Giving him any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. Well, then let's go ahead and start with our affirmative opening.
Thank you, Micah. Yes, as Micah stated, the question of this debate is whether or not we should be prosecuting Americans on in regards to burning the American flag, and even more specific on whether we should be pursuing enhanced punishments for criminals who also burn the American flag. And my stance on this is plain and simple. It is a resounding yes. And there's a few reasons why. But first, let me get into the background information regarding this whole debate. As I'm sure there's many Americans that are familiar with the what happened a few months ago on August 25th, 2025 of last year. President Trump signed Executive Order 14341, which is all about the laying out the basis for prosecuting people on the basis of burning the American flag. Now, granted, per the 1989 landmark Supreme Court ruling of Texas versus Johnson, the Supreme Court formally recognized that that flag burning, particularly the burning of the American flag, is undoubtedly protected by the First Amendment. It is specifically classifying it as a form of political and symbolic speech, something that I completely agree with personally. However, it does not take into account the consequences of said burning of the American flag, and that is what President Trump's executive order specifically addressed. That executive order did was particularly to deal with pursuing prosecution on content neutral laws, such as, if somebody set a flag on fire in like a park or any public space and they caught something else on fire that it shouldn't have, causing potentially hazard issue or arson particularly. But more than that, specifically in regards to this specific debate on prosecution, there's a particular part of this executive order that I believe is the root cause of this controversy per se, particularly Section 2, Part C of the executive order, which allows the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to pursue litigation of said flag burning to, and I quote, maximum extent permitted by the Constitution. Well, that's not the exact same thing as pursuing enhanced punishment. I can understand why that it could possibly like lead to a slippery slope of that, necessarily being the case. Now, and then but going back to the core of this debate, we're asking whether or not is this a good thing, or is this something that we should be pursuing in our justice system? And once again, my stance is plain and simple: yes. And I do not believe that this is overkill or an unconstitutional downstream of our American freedoms. I believe, going back to the core of what that executive order's purpose is, it is at the end of the day all about prosecuting on content neutral laws. And when it comes to the consequences of burning the flag burning, particularly burning the American flag, there can lead to punishment of those content neutral laws, particularly but not just on like the consequences I addressed previously of like unintended arson, but also in regards to actual speech itself, which the courts and statutory law have recognized are not legally protected per the First Amendment. And I have three core examples for why that is the case. The first one is there's a possibility that burning the American flag could lead to what it was recognized by the another landmark Supreme Court case, Brandenburg versus Ohio in 1969, something known as imminent lawless action. This is typically considered when you engage in a form of speech, whether it's oral speech, written speech, or some sort of symbolic speech, but it can trigger something that could lead to others reacting or responding through violent means, which is not protected by the First Amendment. And as we have seen through a lot of recent events from like the last decade plus of American politics, for example, we've seen a lot of potentially, possibly civil demonstrations and civil disobedience that have engaged in flag burning, but has allowed people to elevate it to unlawful means, particularly violent or rioting means, which is not legal. The second possibility is that it could be under the guise of hate crime. Granted, the American flag is not exclusive to any particular group identity other than American citizens, of course. There's a possibility that somebody, whether it's somebody that's an American citizen or a domestic or international person abroad, could burn it with the intention of causing hateful or malice harm to Americans, which is recognized under statutory law, particularly 18 U.S. Code subsection 249 on the guise of nationality and or birthplace. My third and final example is that this can also be determined and adjudicated by our court system, particularly not just on prosecutorial grounds, but also the judges as well. And once again, referring to statutory law, 18 U.S.C. subsection 3553 Part A of the U.S. Sentencing Guidelines Manual, it specifically allows people or judges and the prosecutors to determine how intense of said enhancement can allow to occur. And granted, it's important that it must fall under constitutional procedures, of course, and what the law is recognized both under the courts and our federal statutes. Obviously, there's a very strong case that prosecutors and or judges can refer to the former two cases as the strongest cases for why somebody that can enhance criminal punishment for specifically burning the American flag. So to summarize what I've stated previously, I think that that's completely something that I'm in favor of. I do not see this as an unconstitutional measure. I don't see that this can fall down the path unless my opponent clarify something that maybe I'm potentially missing, but under what is recognized under current legal recognition and legal precedent, I stand by the stance that I have said in my affirmation. And with that, I conclude my opening statement. Thank you, Micah.
All right. Thank you, Tyler Segal. Appreciate that. All right. Now we have 5 minutes of cross-examination. So Tyler
Perfect.
K, take it away.
Okay, Tyler, I just want to confirm with you. So, is most of your defense of enhanced punishment for burning flags or punishment itself, does it seem to lie strictly within the law mostly? Are you looking at legal arguments for this?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Both in statutory and common law.
Okay, so perfect. Okay, so if we're just looking at legal, right, that says to me you want to follow the law. You're trying to be a good citizen here. Okay, good. So let's go through kind of the points you said. So the first thing you said, you referenced 2C to me, that it can respond with case law for this, that the Attorney General would allow that. But I'd actually like to bring your attention to 2B of the executive order. It says, in cases where the Department of Justice or another executive department or agency determines that an instance of an American flag desecration may violate an applicable state or local law, such as opening and burning restrictions, they are able to report it to these authorities to get it done. Basically, an agency that is carved out to say, this person's burning an American flag, they committed a crime, to the local or state officials, please do something. Now, are you aware of the case of Waite v. United States?
I am not. Please enlighten me.
So the Waite v. United States, it basically says that the First Amendment is violated only if the government targeted speech, not speech just by itself. So basically what this does is it says that the government is not allowed to choose who it's going to prosecute and make special divisions based off speech, right? So you can't make special instances for U.S. flag burners. So to make it simply, like, you might have like arson laws, like you can't light things in the street. But if people are always lighting things on fire and you're not prosecuting, but you make an agency just to prosecute those who burn the American flag, even if that appears content neutral, that would fail under the First Amendment. There is a test that this must pass from this case, which is you have to show that the law or the order is discriminatory in effect. So this obviously is 2C, right? It's saying if you're burning the American flag, we are going to target you and have you prosecuted, even if it's like for a content neutral thing like arson. And then secondly, it has to have a discriminatory purpose, which it clearly obviously does, because the whole statute is against burning the American flag. So even under that, it fails. There's a lot more case law where this would fail, but how would you respond to that?
So those are all great points, and thank you for addressing that case study. I need to do personal research on that specific instance. What I will say is I do understand where you are coming from about how the feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but basically what this draws concerns of necessarily arbitrary enforcement or selective prosecution. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, basically, is that possible? Sure, I can full hand acknowledge that. We have seen, lawfare.
Wait, hold on. It's not possible. It's actually directly what the executive order is aiming to do.
In Section B?
2B, yeah.
Yeah,
it is
2B.
aiming to prosecute those who do it.
So I understand why from the opposition it could present that way, but basically we're yielding to the way I see it is that it's making sure to keep people on the lookout of basically how you are going to engage in burning of the American flag.
Okay, wait. So can you repeat to me what the name of the executive order is?
Prosecuting burning of the American flag.
Prosecuting of the burning of the American flag. Okay, and in Section 2B, it says they are going to target people who do this. So I'm confused of why you said it might seem like it's doing this. To me, it seems very directly. It seems like it's in its purpose and put it in its effect. It would target that if it's following the purpose of this executive order.
Well, once again, it's a case by case instance. We need to actually see what these people are doing when they are burning. May I offer a case study of myself in regards to this order?
No, because I'm still a bit confused. So like, because you can imagine like a scenario where you're right, it doesn't actually go into effect with this. That it's just discriminatory in its purpose. It needs to be in its effect too. But then it's just not following the executive order. Then it's moot, right? Then who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have a minute left. Okay, actually,
ask me any additional questions
Yeah, I want to bring up one more test, which is Reed versus Town of Gilbert. So even if the statute is content neutral, if it is enforced in a community content of speech, so such as like, you're going to target people who burn the American flag, it is still illegal. So you cannot do enhanced punishment through that under, as I said, Reed versus Town of Gilbert. So this is a test where it fails just on that. Or the facial content test, where you must look at what the speech says to know whether the rule applies. It's very obvious it applies here. So what would your response be that be? And that's the most recent case too in 2015.
Yes. So again, maybe just because I need to look further at this case study, but once again, I don't personally see how it can lead. I have the executive order open like to my right now. I'm looking at the section 2 part B. I don't interpret it as a direct target of flag burners. I see it as who burns it and who abuses said freedom. It's when I think what the bigger issue is how those content neutral laws are interpreted rather than how the prosecution of the burning is.
Come on.
I'm gonna stop you there.
You're gonna stop us.
Yes. Cross-X time is done. So, Tyler K, it is now your turn. 10 minutes for a opening and a response to Tyler S.
Yeah. So I'm. Punishment. I don't think it should be punished at all.
Sorry, Tyler K. We go ahead and restart that because you were breaking.
So yeah, good.
You were breaking up there. Okay. 10 minutes. There you go.
Yeah. So I am against any punishments with burning the American flag. I'm against enhanced punishments, and I'm against arbitrarily prosecuting those who do it. An ordinance, so under the executive order. So I'll kind of break that down in each 3 ways of why I think it should not be allowed. And, as Tyler said, from a legal perspective, I will focus on the legal perspective too. If we want to get into the philosophical aspects of this, I'm totally happy to do that too. So first, why we are promised freedom of expression in the United States. And the first question should be like, well, what counts as like freedom of expression? So this was actually founded in the case of Spence v. Washington, where there's a test to see if conduct itself can be considered speech. So first, it's the intent. You have to intent to convey a particularized message. Okay, so does burning the American flag do that? Absolutely. It seems to be anti-American and so forth. Right? You're trying to show you're mad at America in some regard. Section 2, or part 2 of the test would be the likelihood the message would be understood. I don't think it's hard to understand why someone's burning an American flag. In fact, the laws against it, or the enhancements laws, kind of prove, because they're saying you are targeting or being directly offensive to the American flag. So I think it's very clear that it counts as speech, and it should be protected under the First Amendment under free speech. You can just say that you're against the First Amendment and you're against American values. That's okay. I'm not going to do that, though. Okay. Secondly, can you do enhanced punishment? The answer to this is no, legally. Essentially, as I pointed out with Wait for the United States, selective prosecution. No, as I said, basically with Reed versus the Town of Gilbert, just adding the additional punishment itself is still a First Amendment violation, and that has been drawn out in many Supreme Court cases. such as in Texas v. Johnson and stuff like this, because the aggravated offense of the speech does that. And then third, the selected prosecution, which I kind of already went over a bit. But again, you cannot selectively prosecute people. So if you do, and it's discriminatory in effect and discriminatory in purpose, it will not count. They'll be shut down as White v. United States. But now I'll allude my time to kind of talking a little bit more about what Tyler said. So I think one of the interesting things he said is that he talks about hate crimes, which, for the record, I don't even know if I'm fully for the idea of hate crimes. I think they are a bit dubious, but I'll try to talk about like what they are and why they might be different in this case. So hate crimes are essentially hate crimes aren't targeting speech. They are targeting motive. And motive has always been fair game in prosecution. So this talks about organized crime, crimes against vulnerable victims such as protected classes, premeditation, etc. However, even in hate crimes, the speech itself is never criminalized. It can only be used as evidence. So suppose someone let's say does a crime against an LGBTQ member, and they burn the pride flag. So the burning the pride flag is not punishment itself. The burning the pride flag can just be seen as evidence of this person's motive is to harm the LGBTQ community as a whole. They are just adding an aggravated sentence to the punishment itself, or to the crime itself. So you still have to commit the crime, which would be like assault, murder, or many such cases. There's been a lot of crime cases that have kind of backed this up, that the speech itself cannot be criminalized. There's a Virginia v. Black case, which basically tried to ban the burning of crosses, for clans, things and stuff like that. And that was deemed unconstitutional because they tried arguing that prima facie just burning a cross is intimidation itself. That was shut down. There was dissent, though, but the dissent actually came from the conservative justices, mostly Clarence Thomas, because the larger point of this is that the conservatives are a bit harder on free speech. So what you could say is essentially that, well, Americans are a national origin, they're a protected class, so could you use burning the American flag as evidence? Sure, you can use it as evidence, but the speech itself cannot be used as an enhancement. If you can show that this person has anti-American beliefs and they want to target Americans, and then you kind of carve out there that it's the protected class, it's national origin, which would be tricky. You can certainly do that, but the burning the flag itself would not be a part of that. That's just part of the evidence to see the motive. So I hope I've kind of laid out some differences in these cases and why legally it would not be allowed. And Tyler said that he's arguing it's mostly relying on legalities. I think it's a pretty clear case that none of the stuff would be allowed. So I'll allow him to go now and do the cross-examination, and I'll end my time. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tyler K., for clarifying your stances, and I appreciate all the citations of recognized precedent of current speech laws per recognized First Amendment law. And I'll just be upfront and concede that my the hate crime aspect is one example, but it's not my strongest case because you have to prove it. You brought up an interesting point, two interesting points on. Particularly on intent and motive, because I think that's kind of the core of where I stand by on my issues or my stance validates my stance for why there should be pursued enhanced punishment. You mentioned of all the cases that you mentioned, I know one that you briefly mentioned but was not the core of your case, Texas versus Johnson, which is the one that pretty much laid the foundation of particularly of the legality of burning the American flag. More specifically, it's recognized as a form of both political speech and symbolic speech. To your best ability, can you define both of those real quickly? How you define symbolic speech? How would you personally define symbolic and political speech?
I don't know how I would define that. I'd probably look to what the Supreme Court defined them as. Do you know what the Supreme Court definitions are?
Yes, basically that symbolic speech is pretty much a form of, at least the way I interpret it, as a form of not direct verbal speech or written speech. Like you're basically some figurative expression of how you are expressing your opinion on whatever the subject matter is. Political speech is pretty straightforward. You're voicing your opinion on a political issue. Do you believe that in regards to as recognized by Texas versus Johnson for burning the American flag, is there any way to exercise that in symbolic or political means without violating content neutral laws?
Is there a way to like convey the same message?
Yes.
That's a hard. I'd say actually probably not. I think that burning the American flag does seem to be kind of like this like special thing where it seems like the biggest like kind of like attack on like kind of like condemnation of your own country. So I don't know if there would be another way around it, but I'd have to think more about that.
Well, I appreciate your honesty, and this isn't a gotcha because I actually agree that this is like the biggest challenge of said burning. You know, checking my own quick opinion about speaking, I actually don't have a problem with people exercising their right to practice that. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily, but it really boils down to what is the consequence of said burning, which this executive order is attempting to pursue. And then going back to the issue of motive and intention, is there any legal precedent of said speech creating like a shock reaction or just a response from somebody that may see said speech exercise that can inflict?
So yeah, from my understanding with the court decision, stuff like this, the Supreme Court has been very consistent on that hate speech is always allowed. Hate speech itself.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
It cannot be a crime. Just offending a group cannot be enough to be illegal. So there's calls to action that are illegal. Defamation could be illegal. Obscenity can be illegal. But I do not believe a political message or symbolic political message would ever count as that.
I actually agree with you. And more to clarify my stance, I'm not even referring to hate speech laws or what's recognized as hate speech. More specifically, I'm referring to my first case from my opening, imminent lawless action from the Brandenburg v. Ohio case, which basically which the court recognizes that under the certain speech instances that when it causes basically a form of like a response to necessarily not as a form of incitement of violence, that it can be interpreted as such. It's granted it is a bit challenging in most present cases, but it's specifically the holding was that I'm blanking, held that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is directed to inciting or producing, as I said, imminent lawless action, and is likely to incite, produce such action. And while it's technically an open-ended term, I think that's the strongest case for what I'm arguing for, that it could cause. And just going to like anecdotes of like what we've seen from like.
Okay, quickly, just with Brandenburg v. Ohio though. So the test for Brandenburg, because I just quickly searched it up, is that for this to be illegal, there needs to be 3 tests that pass and all elements must be met. Right. You have to have the intent to incite or produce imminent lawless action. So you'd have to show the intent with that, right?
Right.
The action of speech itself is not allowed to show intent that way.
So this goes back to my
Tyler.
Oh, darn.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. Your 5 minutes is up. But your 5-minute affirmative response begins now. So you'll have 5 minutes. Let me get Tyler and me out of here.
Right. Okay, well, yeah, I guess this goes back to kind of indirectly continue on with what Tyler and I were previously discussing. This kind of goes back to, again, the stance of where I'm saying, again, is burning the American flag protected speech? Absolutely. Is hate speech or offensive speech recognized under the First Amendment? Absolutely. Should we encourage and defend people to exercise such freedoms, no matter how much we condemn or despise it? Absolutely. All of this goes back to again, what I'm saying, the consequences of violating content neutral laws, and particularly imminent lawless action, and particularly said intent of said actions. When we look at what actually when I think that, granted, it could be, there could be a vagueness problem that could occur. Keyword could, but I think that what we when we witness people, particularly, like, we're in an age of, digital age, social media, people are constantly recording people, and there's security cameras everywhere. Unless, obviously there's nobody, I doubt that there will be very little, like, protesters or violent demonstrators that'll say, like, hey, I'm burning this flag and it's specifically to inflict more harm on the people around me. Like, I understand that's not necessarily probably ever going to happen, just common sense. But we can witness, there could be a strong case that when we witness said certain people burning the flag, or even just burning in, but no, I'm actually not going to yield on other hypotheticals, just on the flag. If we observe certain people that choose to burn the American flag, I feel like there's a very strong likelihood that we can be able to crack down their motive, not just of, like, this is how I am necessary. Maybe that could be an element of, oh, I'm upset with my country or government or etc. But also, like, hey, I'm burning it, and I happen to be, protesting on the street near this, near this police car or near this bank or neighborhood. Oh, oops, it could set on fire. My mistake. Again, I think, I said it during my cross examination as well. I fully concede to the point that the element of charging on hate crimes necessarily is the weakest case, because you have to prove that you are going after for, of American citizens, on American nationals specifically. That's minimal. I don't even think that's the core reason why. So I concede on those grounds. But to the point of imminent lawless action, particularly proving intent of said actions, we need to see how these cases adjudicate. But overall, I think that if this ever does happen, like, anybody does get challenged in court, I think it'll be pretty clear of whether or not they were intending to inflict harm or not. That's the core of what I want to say. I yield my time. Thank you.
All righty. So now we have the 10-minute neg response and closing. So Tyler K, you've got 10 minutes. You can respond to anything Tyler S has said, and then give your last.
All right, let me get my American flag out. I'm going to burn it.
Arguments. All right, you got 10 minutes.
Okay. So I didn't realize the Brandenburg v. Ohio, so I searched it up a bit just to get clarity. And in Tex v. Johnson, Brandenburg is actually brought up, and it's explicitly said that the idea of burning the American flag implies imminent threat to lawless action. The courts rejected that outright. They said that, they cited that directly. So even in that, they're saying that is not enough, just burning the American flag. And now I understand that Tyler's saying, well, when we adjudicate these cases, we can see that. That might be true. I might grant that there might be a correlation between, like, burning the American flag and then, like, inciting some other crime. I'm not sure. That might be out there. However, a statute or an executive order that goes out of its way to target those cases, to be investigated, to be searched up just on the basis of burning the American flag is already outlawed, as I said, through the United States. You are not allowed to discriminate on who you choose to apply to. Because in effect, and in the executive order's purpose, we would see issues in this because it's directly targeting the burning of the American flag, which is considered protected speech. So even in, Brandenburg, Ohio, it's been noted that burning the American flag is not sufficient in doing that, and that's later confirmed in Texas v. Ohio, in Texas v. Johnson. So that just can't pass the legal test, and that's kind of where I'll probably start my closing statements now. And basically that I think legally it's pretty clear that anything around burning the American flag and adding charges or just targeting people for prosecution, that's been decided over and over again from the Supreme Court that is illegal. You are not allowed to do that, just from a complete legal perspective. I will read out Section 2B in its totality from the executive order, and then we can talk about what we think that means, because I know there are some issues on there. It says, in cases where the Department of Justice or another executive department or agency determines that an instance of an American flag desecration may violate an applicable state or local law, such as open burning restrictions, disorderly conduct laws, or destruction of property laws, the agency shall refer to the matter to the appropriate state or local authority for potential action. Now, we see here, it doesn't just say flag, it doesn't say symbol, it says American flag. To me, that is saying this is targeting people who are burning the American flag. And we can look to the discriminatory purpose of that statute. If that is applied, and if from this executive order, this agency is targeting people who are burning the American flag, and they are more likely to be prosecuted on things such as, burning, burning stuff, or they're targeted on disorderly conduct, that would show a discriminatory effect, which would make the law unconstitutional. We can also focus this on Reed versus Town of Gilbert. A government action is content-based if either of the following true. You look at what it says or symbolizes to know when the rule applies. Yes, what's the speech saying? Burning the American flag. That is considered protected speech. You are making a statute that would target the prosecution of this. Fails the Gilbert test. Okay, even part 2. It's already failed part 1, but let's say you disagree. The function or enforcement of the test. Even if it's facially neutral, a rule is content-based if it is enforced based on the communicative content of the speech. So what's triggering these investigations is the symbol of burning the American flag. So again, it would fail under that, and that is the most recent Supreme Court case of being referenced here of 2015. And a lot of these are big Supreme Court wins, like 7-2 and things like that. Things of that nature. So to me, it just seems like a legally shut case that burning the American flag is protected speech. Enhanced punishments are not allowed, and even targeting them is not supposed to be. And as Tyler said, that burning the American flag cannot be used as evidence for inciting violence. You'd have to look at other things like the words they said and the environment. But the burning of the flag itself would not be enough to incite that, and it would be rejected by the Supreme Court. So that's my closing statement. I had a lot of fun talking about this. I'm excited for the more open discussion, live chat. Maybe Mike can join in. Who knows? We'll have a good time. But I'm curious to hear Tyler's response.
All righty. Now, Tyler, you have 5 minutes for your closing whenever you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Tyler. Again, so I think, the way I see this whole debate is about the hypotheticals versus the actual practice, what will be done in practice. I think, going to what I previously said, I feel very confident that, along with going with saying that this executive order is not on, isn't defined the First Amendment. I also believe that we will see in the future, if anybody does get prosecuted, that the courts will settle out. to my knowledge, I need to do further research. But since this executive order has been signed, there's only been one person, to my knowledge, that has been that's been arrested as a result of burning the flag in protests. I believe it was actually the day of the signing. It was a man named Jay Carey, a protester from Washington, D.C., that got arrested for burning the flag. But it wasn't for burning the flag itself. It was because they burned it and then let it burn on the grounds of Lafayette Square, the small little park area right behind the lighthouse, which is federal grounds, which you're not allowed to burn stuff on. And this goes back to what those content neutral laws are. There's a lot of, like, particularly arson related laws that do recognize what you can burn, what you can't burn, and the time and place for it, and the environments you're in, which I do appreciate. Tyler himself acknowledging that element. In regards to whether or not it's an overstep, I don't see it. I do understand what he was saying in regards to direct targeting of flag burners, as what it could be interpreted from Section 2, Part B. But I think the other relevant element of text from the order is what follows right after in Section 2, Part C. And I will read that in full verbatim, which says, quote, "To the maximum extent permitted by the Constitution, the Attorney General shall vigorously prosecute those who violate our laws in ways that involve desecrating the American flag, and may pursue litigation to clarify the scope of the First Amendment exceptions in this area." So that means that the Justice Department and any U.S. attorneys that do take action on this, they will have to rely on recognized precedent that is recognized, a lot of them by the Supreme Court, as Texas v. Johnson, Reed versus Gilbert, and all the other aforementioned ones that Tyler previously stated, all of which are cases that I do agree with completely. When it ultimately, it will come down to, in my opinion, both, as I mentioned, recognized arson laws, but content neutral laws of imminent lawless action. I think it's very, and I don't want to yield too much of the timing of the ruling, because I don't think that I disagree with the notion that Supreme Court rulings are done based on society's opinion on these cases. They're supposed to transcend overall what society's opinion is. There has been moments that fall flat, but that's a whole other conversation. In regards to flag burning, I don't think that the justices at the time who agreed with the majority opinion took into consideration about the elevation or elevates increased passion or motivation for what would see a burning the American flag today in modern protests. Is that me advocating that, we shouldn't because they're protesting for the wrong reasons or bad faith? Absolutely not. We've got 1 minute left. But basically, it boils down to that how they decide to how they choose to execute said burning overall. That overall concludes my closing statement as well. Thank you, Micah, for moderating. Tyler, you were a great opponent to debate. I learned a lot of info from you on your side. So, and I think that this is definitely a conversation that a lot of people need to have on long overdue for this topic. So, thank you everybody for watching, and also happy to take any answer any questions that anybody from the chat may have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, guys. Round of applause for you guys.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, now we'll just have kind of open discussion. I may jump in here every once in a while. So chat, either YouTube or TikTok, if you guys have any questions for us, let us know in the chat. But yeah, let's just have open discussion here.
Yeah, no, Tyler, I thought it was really fun. I think we agreed on a lot more than I thought we would going in. And I think you're almost a liberal. I really like it. I like to see it.
Classical liberal for sure. John Locke, Voltaire, Rousseau type liberal for sure.
I love all those guys too. So you're hearing no complaints from me.
Awesome sauce.
Okay, so where do you guys think is the main point of disagreement with you guys?
Yeah, I think I kind of heard it at the end. I think that Tyler S is saying that we're not going to see an effect from this executive order that will show people burning the American flag being discriminated, prosecuted, targeted.
Mhm.
But my whole point is, if that's the case, though, then it's just it's irrelevant. It's like a moot point. What's the point of even having the statute or the executive order then? If it's if it can only go to the extent that's constitutionally protected and can't, discriminate in who prosecutes, enhance any punishment, just, target any as a speech crime at all, then what's the point of having it?
Yeah, and I do also agree in part of what Tyler's saying that about concerns of arbitrary, enforcement, selective prosecution, because as somebody who's me on my side of the political aisle has definitely witnessed firsthand how the law has been weaponized of particular prominent individuals to skew in a different way, but that's a whole other conversation of debate. Definitely open to having that debate in the future. Yes. But on this subject, yeah, I definitely agree that that's a fundamental moral failing of, I would say, of our justice system overall. That there are bad faith actors that are in positions of power that they shouldn't be, that are going to go out of their way to possibly target and have certain groups or ideologies. But as somebody who, the, classical liberal, big believer in rule of law, social contract theory, I'm a big believer that, at least particularly in today's day and age, that the law is on the people's side. We as a society go out of our way to often over exaggerate to a fault, not even in a bad way necessarily, to protect the basic rights and freedoms of our fellow citizens, our fellow man and woman. In the case of flag burning, I think that the law will overwhelmingly be on our side. Granted, anything can happen in the future. I hope that for my side's sake, because I don't want to lose political capital, that it gets the prosecutions get abused in that way.
Can I ask you?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a quick clarifying question with that? Do you think if it was constitutionally allowed, do you think Donald Trump would make it illegal to burn the U.S. flag?
Repeat the question.
If let's suppose it was constitutionally allowed, do you think Donald Trump would ban the burning of the American flag?
Hate to take a dig on my side, but I would probably yield to yes, just because I do acknowledge that he does have pro-American nationalist tendencies. American nationalist tendencies,
or as I call anti-American values.
Oh, again, another debate for another time. Yeah. But on that subject, it's a tough hypothetical. But yeah, I guess I would have to give ammunition to your side and probably yield to he most likely would. But I also then going back to my whole aforementioned, I interpret this executive order as essentially enforcing the law. It does recognize a lot of what is recognized in Texas versus Johnson. What it does, in my opinion, is that it addresses the consequences of abusing Texas v. Johnson more than anything.
Yeah, and not to relitigate the whole debate, but
sure.
Even if I grant that this executive order is just about enforcing the law, why call it prosecuting burning the American flag? Why is that the title of it?
For the headlines, Tyler.
Yeah, but that's my issue. Why does it keep mentioning it throughout the executive order?
I think. Well, I guess because I have two theories. I'm not in his head. I wish I was in politicians' heads. So I can get them to their bidding, but not. So many theories. My two theories is that one, that the American there's the American flag is particularly the center of what people want to burn for exercising First Amendment. The second theory that I have, just in terms of legal grounds, is because the state, quite literally, the state as an entity is the for prosecuting power more than anything. One, but you brought it based on this question I have for you. I have a follow-up question in your direction.
Yes.
Do you think it would be better, it would be more specifically constitutional if it wasn't about prosecuting the American flag, but just prosecuting flag burning in general? Like,
Yeah, because then it's not like content. Yeah, because then it's much more content neutral, right?
Okay.
Then it's like, okay, like maybe like it would still probably run into a lot of First Amendment issues because like flags almost necessarily like represent something. So like
Right.
that would be really difficult, but it would
Yeah.
be a step in the right direction for sure.
Okay, I have to agree with you on that because there's countless of dozen flags. There are people may want to burn the Nazi flag or the Confederate flag, and then you have all these
Canadian flag.
the Canadian.
the
Oh
Maple Leaf.
yeah, heaven forbid on that.
Yeah.
And then, or like what you mentioned of like hate crime laws, charging people that burn the pride flag or any other ones, or
Yeah.
like I'm Jewish. I know there's a lot of people that have a problem with Israel and how they're in the Middle East conflict. That again, whole other conversation.
Yes,
But there might be people that might have an urge to burn the Israeli flag. That's not necessarily. That doesn't mean that it's an act of anti-Semitism. I would completely, context matters. I think that it's just going after their disgust or discretion of the Israeli government. Again, it could be hypothetical, but yeah, like basically, there's so many. To your point, yeah, there is so many reasons to interpret why people want to burn flags in general.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So I have some theory on why I think Donald Trump did title it "Burning the American Flag" and passed it. Because when I was doing my research, that John Hawley, a senator, he actually put forth a bill that enhanced penalties for criminal flag burners acts. So people who burn the American flag would have enhanced sentencing. Is a bill he did try to pass, and the bill was sponsored by Donald Trump, and this is June 12th, 2025. So I think there might be a connection with that. That's the bill that's proposed in the Senate.
That's interesting. Yeah. I doubt they'll get past one because like our even split in the Senate is just so annoying for both sides.
And hopefully it doesn't get passed, right? That's
I mean then more because like it's just not constitutional.
Because like Tyler, if I recall, I think this conversation started because I said conservatives today, or I shouldn't say conservatives. Republicans today are worse on free speech than Democrats are. Right? That's my main claim today, right? And that's what's like surrounding this. And I feel like, just even with like the senator trying to pass this bill right now, sponsored by the president, the leader of the Republican Party, gives a lot of ammunition to decide that you're right, Donald Trump probably would want to ban the burning of the American flag, which is something that you've admitted. And I think it's evidence that right now the Republicans are worse for free speech than the Democrats are, and are worse for than my side.
Yeah, I will grant you, I will concede on the flag burning elements. Yeah, it does not look good optics wise. And again, I need to read the full Josh Hawley's bill, but the way you described it, I completely disagree. There's no way it's going to get. Yeah, but to your bigger overarching point of which party is more not necessarily pro free speech, but more anti free speech, I guess is a better way to frame it. Do you believe is your position? And I know we've talked in the past. I know that you're critical of your own side, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Have you personally seen any instances from the Democrat side, particularly from the previous administration, that were outright like attacks on freedom of speech, or did you not see it as grave?
No, I think so. I want to be first. I think any government can definitely be at risk of overstepping their governmental powers that may violate speech in some ways. However, there's not been any power on the legislative level from the Democrats or from executive orders, which is my main issue. It's one thing for your government's actions to do this. It's another thing to try to pass things through law. I think that is much worse, and it's much more pernicious.
So you are correct. Yeah, there's no examples I can cite from the legislative perspective.
And neither could Piers Morgan.
Yeah, well, since unfortunately for you, I am not Piers Morgan. I am the pilot.
Yeah, you're Tyler S. Your head works just fine.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, so I can't necessarily cite it. Yeah, I can't cite anything from the legislative perspective, but I can cite something from both the executive and the judiciary perspective from the left. So back when Biden first entered office, there were two strong cases right immediately after he entered office. There was a memorandum that he signed on January 26th, 2021, or like a week after he entered office. It was a memorandum titled Condemning and Combating Racism, Xenophobia, and Intolerance Against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. Basically, it ordered federal workers to not engage in, racialized language, racist comments towards towards the Asian American, and like I'm not saying like, oh, that's horrible, condemn it. That's a good thing.
I don't think you're a
but,
racist.
But was it? Yeah, I appreciate it. But what was interesting about the timing is that a lot of people realize is that was particularly in correlation with the hotly contested debate at the time of the origins of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly the lab leak theory. Basically, that memorandum was essentially a censorship of federal workers from being allowed to openly discuss whether or not they believe that it was of Chinese origin, not Chinese national origin, but of created by the Wuhan lab in the CCP. That that's not I grant that that's not an overall attack on the First Amendment.
Yeah,
but that's a major has major implications on what federal workers are allowed to say. That's my first example. The second example, also a week after Biden entered office, his DOJ directly went after and indicted this right-wing commentator, Douglas Mackey's his name, and for posting a meme that they declared as meddling with the 2016 election, telling Hillary Clinton supporters to vote via text. And it wasn't even his own meme. It was just a meme that he shared online. And they said, like, they charged him with, I believe, conspiracy against rights. And going back to our whole thing about selective prosecution, arbitrary enforcement, there have been instances of particularly left-wing people going after Trump-leaning voters, like Christina Wong also made a similar comments directly by herself via video message during the 2016 election. There was also Jimmy Kimmel right before the 2024 election telling Trump voters that to vote like days after. But those were obvious jokes. I acknowledge those are jokes. The thing is that the fact that they went after him for 4 years over an obvious joke for a meme.
Can I quite quickly respond to the
please. Yeah.
The Mackey claim? So
sure.
As you and I both recognize, there are some things that are not protected under the First Amendment, right?
Absolutely.
So one of those things is giving false voting information.
Sure.
So that's what Douglas Mackey was investigated for. Douglas Mackey was sharing memes and was knowingly spreading false voting instructions. He intended to trick people into not voting, and this was shown with coordinating with others. So Douglas Mackey was attacked for he wasn't violating the First Amendment by doing that. He was deliberately trying to tell people where they should or should not be voting or the dates or times.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that word deliberately, because I do understand that's what they were investigating under.
Yeah.
But then once the sentencing occurred, and I think like the New York, I think it was taking place in the Southern District, New York, where this thing happened. The judge did side with that. However, once he finally appealed, which I believe the Court of Appeals ruling occurred in July 10th of last year. I have the exact date. I need to pull it up. I wrote about it, but in the appeals ruling, it was a unanimous 3-0 ruling in Mackey's favor that pretty much cited what a lot of people that defended him was already saying, that that the government cannot produce any actual evidence that he was committing conspiracy against rights, that he was actively, deliberately. Like, I think part of the prosecution was that he was part of like some sting or something.
But like, look, I agree. It's okay, but Biden didn't say go to prison now. He said this should be investigated. I think that the court, like the case had standing, right? Like there was reason to investigate this. The fact that the one judge found it and it failed an appeal, that's fine. But if the appeal just said, hey, you didn't have enough evidence for this, you're not charged. That's fine. I'm okay with people like being charged for those things and going to court, if there's like actual good standing, which the judge decided on.
So okay, that I appreciate that response, and I do agree to an extent. To the point about selective prosecution, do you believe it was a moral failing of the Biden DOJ to not go after the people like Christina Wong or even Jimmy Kimmel for making similar comments to the other side?
About like,
do you think they should have? Do you think they should have done the same thing? Yeah.
Jimmy Kimmel was joking about you. Oh, it depends. So like if you could show that Jimmy Kimmel was intending to mislead others of where to vote, not joking, but intending to mislead, then
Right.
yes, I would condemn it. I'm suspicious that was actually the case, that Jimmy Kimmel was out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, no, I'll even admit up front, like, it was obvious that he's joking. Same with that other comedian, Christina Wong. Like, they were clearly joking.
But the thing is, it sounds like it wasn't obvious that Mackey was joking, right?
That's up to interpretation.
Well, yeah, but at least from the justice standpoint.
Okay, so well, let me make a stronger case with. I'll even
though, and this had like Jimmy Kimmel's not been tried for that. Christina Wang. So it seems like the court just don't, and that's not the only person who can like charge people, right? Like
fair enough. Well, actually, let me, and then I'll wrap it up on that case study with the Christina Wong video. Like she's a flaming bleeding heart liberal, but in this in the video statement, because it's a more of a direct statement on her. Again, Mackey was just sharing somebody else's meme that wasn't his. Wong particularly wore a MAGA hat, showed a bunch of Trump banners, paraphernalia stuff. So hey, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm on your guys' side. And I found out the super easy way on how to vote. Just type it, just text this number, and I'm paraphrasing. I'll send you. If you want the video link, I'll send you the video.
Yeah, no, look, totally. But there's a bunch of other agencies that are able to charge her with this. So if they're not doing this, that just tells me something that there might not be anything there. Right, like that's what I'm.
Maybe grant fair, but again, I think.
Well, here, can I bring up the example I first thought of, which was the Biden administration telling Facebook that they need to go after, certain content about COVID-19.
Yeah, did you watch? And
basically,
Jubilee interview?
threatening them.
I brought that up. Did you?
Oh yeah, no, I watched that in preparation for this.
Yeah,
but and what's interesting is that there was actually the case for what was a major Supreme Court case that unfortunately did not go in our favor. I think it was called Murphy versus Missouri. Have you heard about that case? It was from summer 2024. It was kind of under the radar from the immunity case and a few other ones, but basically it didn't go in our favor. But basically it was going to determine whether or not the government agencies have a say to enforce speech law on the guise of whether something is misinformation or disinformation. Do you consider that an abridgment of free speech?
Can you repeat what was ruled?
Yeah, let me pull it up, the summary holding.
But with regards with the Biden administration, the Facebook messages, I kind of agree with the Supreme Court's ruling on that. It just lacks standing, right? There's not enough evidence to show that their communications with Facebook or even Twitter for that matter had any influence on any moderation laws. The government agencies are technically allowed to communicate with these and make recommendations. Now, there's a certain line that they cannot cross that I agree with. You should err on the side of not even getting close to that, and they may have done that, even though it did have standing in the end. But I'm generally against that sort of stuff. But I do think that again, when we're talking about that, is way different from what Donald Trump did, right? We're talking about a little molehill versus a big mountain of free speech violation.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I would say it's a little molehill. I mean, that's that. Well,
that's what the conservative justice Supreme Court
into. Yeah, well, I don't know. I just think that can easily cross the line into a lot of government involvement that neither of us would want.
What do you think the risk was then? Though? What was the risk of the Biden administration talking with Facebook moderation team?
That's it was basically all about how whether or not there was a necessity for mandates of COVID-19, whether we needed lockdowns, whether we needed masks, whether we needed to have vaccines and vaccine passports.
all they're allowed to do is like make recommendations, and those recommendations can be seen as eventually surpassing what the First Amendment allows, right? If it becomes too forceful, but they are not allowed to coerce Facebook, and I don't think Facebook even said that they coerced them.
Well, I mean, Zuckerberg pretty heavily.
He wrote he write a letter to Congress admitting.
He wrote a letter to Congress.
Yeah. He said that that he was forced into it.
Well, maybe not forced, but he got nudged or got nudged into it.
But so that was
a heavy implication.
That was Zuckerberg's testimony, and then when it was heard at the Supreme Court, they didn't think his evidence is good enough to even be heard.
Wait, and this was the Murphy case, or is this a different case? Wait, are you referring to the Murphy case or a different case?
No, we're referring to the Facebook Biden.
Oh, okay.
So even in
that, well, I mean, what I'll say about this in regards to like the debate of the COVID-19 misinformation, a lot of it, you're right. Agencies do have an active effort to make sure that there's like civility of the discourse of what they are allowed to enforce, in the sense of like to make sure that nobody's getting bad information, because the Supreme Court also has recognized that false statements of fact are not protected by the First Amendment. So that part is 100% true. The issue is that in regards to the COVID stuff, is that a lot of the stuff that was considered misinformation at the time was eventually proven correct. Eventually, things like certain face coverings were ineffective, and then they said that wasn't, then it was true. They said that like, oh, you can't catch COVID after you got the vaccine. They said that was false information, then it wasn't. Then there's a whole thing with like ivermectin tablets saying that wasn't effective, but then they said like, oh, this is okay. That there's no health implications from taking the vaccine, but then that was proven wrong with like myocarditis with some of the.
Well, hold on. With the vaccine and myocarditis, you were still the risk of you getting myocarditis was like lower than you dying from COVID, right? Like that. Like that's why it wasn't considered. It's like it's there.
Yeah, but then like it was mainly about like who was it needed for more than anything, because like the vaccine was,
but I don't want to get
into a COVID debate, but like the vaccine was.
But from my memory, that definitely holds up. But
granted, the vaccine, like if you're somebody that was like over 70, or you're like an obese person, or if you had like the critical medical critical issues, then it was necessary. But like to mandate the entire public, so like you can like so much you can access a restaurant or museums or hotels or casinos, movie theaters, like it was never needed for any other vaccine schedule that we had previously. And then people are questioning like, wait, why don't we just take other alternatives? And
look, we can get a COVID discussion one day. I am not educated enough on
it's been a while for me. I did write a whole article, but that was over a year ago, so I need to freshen up myself.
But Micah, what did you think of my answer about the Biden case? Where am I wrong?
Well, I mean, you're obviously right about tossing it out because of standing issues. So there wasn't enough evidence, I don't think, they're provided. But I do think, that is a dangerous precedent to set.
Which I am against.
Right. And I think, right there, you're against it because, I don't even think, I don't want the government advising social media companies of what, information they should censor at all. I don't even want anything close to that, even if it doesn't legally come down to, it didn't actually, there's not enough evidence to show that it affected their decision.
Yeah.
And because and this is where like Mark Zuckerberg, he did say like he regretted caving on these things. And it's like, the question is, like, okay, would he have even done any of those things had the Biden administration not said something? Probably not. At least that's my opinion. He probably wouldn't have, especially since he said he regretted it. So, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right on a technical level, but as far as like what is like good in setting precedent, I think it's really bad.
So yeah, I think it's really bad. But again, would you rather have a president who is passing laws that make certain forms of speech illegal, or a president who is trying to meddle in with content moderation in social media companies? Like what's worse?
Wait, what?
I
Repeat
mean, it's hard to even
But we can do it.
quantify that.
Right?
Oh wait, okay.
We can quantify
Repeat.
it there.
Content moderation versus what again? What was the first one?
Banning for certain speech with the law.
I see it more as like enforcing consequences of certain. I hear it's from the woke liberals. Not necessarily you, Tyler, but like people just like say, oh, freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom from consequences.
Yeah, cringe when people say that. I agree.
Yeah, so like, and like I think in like our probably another biggest agreement on what the law, First Amendment law, all legally recognized law is freedom of speech, and all freedom of speech is all legally recognized speech. It is well, as broad as that is, it's actually really easy to condense it down what is illegal speech, and I think that it's in defense of the people, the citizens, it's actually really hard to prosecute. I mean, hard to prove that that they were breaking speech without finding direct evidence of illegal speech, because overall all illegal speech is actually needs to be directly defined or directly acted on.
Yeah.
It's like, and then that goes into like the legal debate of inductive versus deductive reasoning. But I think that the way that I interpret a lot of First Amendment law, like what is illegal speech, you have to prove like direct action of said speech. So like when it comes to the prosecution of Blackbird, you have to the burden of proof is on the state, like everything in our court system, to prove the direct intent of them committing illegal speech.
I agree. So I just want to get you guys on the side of the libs. I just want you to be a little more lib-pilled, right?
A little more lib-pilled.
But, Tyler, I know Micah's position well. But where are you? Do you consider yourself a Trump Republican, or are you a Republican who does not like Trump, or are you a Republican who doesn't think Trump is far right enough, so you don't like him for those reasons?
Oh, yeah, definitely not confessing to the third. No, I'm not the third one, but it's tough because there's a lot of mixed stuff that has definitely changed, not just my stance, but I think a lot of conservative stances from the last year of the administration so far for varying reasons. I see myself like this. I don't want to say passionately conservative. I can actually, to be more specific in terms, I would label myself a paleo-libertarian, which is like a cross between classical liberalism and paleo-conservatism, because I believe in cultural reforms and civil reform, but I don't believe in force either. In regards to Trump, I am overall in support of not necessarily him directly, but of the administration and seeing certain policies of the mandate be fulfilled. I hope for the best, since we our side won the election. But there's been a handful of things that I've been upset at best, disappointed at worst from what I've seen so far. Things like the Epstein files, the mass investment in AI, data centers, the whole being cozy with Peter Thiel, failing to codify centralized digital banking currency ban, and the recent National Defense Authorization Act 2026. A lot of my grievances are in policy stuff, and then of course some rhetorical stuff like like his most recent comments on Rob Reiner's murder,
or calling Renee Good a domestic terrorist before any evidence came out that she was involved.
Well, I disagreed calling her that. Did I? But was the ICE agent at fault?
No. Well, I agree. That's a completely separate question. But I think just calling her a domestic terrorist straight out.
That's a dig too far, in my opinion. That was I don't know why he said that. That's another. He keeps, in regards to the comments that I don't really care about, like him being abrasive. That's just his brand. But I also don't agree that he should also be saying things for the sake of saying something, going back to the Epstein stuff. Like he's, getting angry at my MAGA boys and girls for, Pam Bondi doing an excellent job.
He needs to tone down the political rhetoric and tone down the flames. Because
yes,
political violence is due, and Trump needs to be the one to tone it down as the leader of the free world.
Yeah, I can agree that there's certain aspects he should tone.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's a big impediment of his character.
Well,
he is as a president.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I mean that's where, especially this last election, people that voted for him knew that stuff was coming. It's just a negative we're willing to live with.
Yeah, I think that's true for you and Tyler S. But I do worry sometimes that there's a large part of the Republican Party right now who votes for Trump because of those reasons. The reasons why they like Trump.
Oh, certainly there's some people.
Because he's like that, right? And I think that's very poisonous to the political discourse. Because I thought we had a very respectful political discussion, Tyler.
Oh yeah, totally.
There's no stoking of the flames.
Oh yeah, no, I'll be the first one to admit, especially as somebody who's a big fan of the Surrounded series. I've seen a lot of the, every single one of the 1v20 debates, particularly.
You should go on it.
I don't want to, get bombarded online with, it get potentially going viral for the wrong reasons. But I mean, if it was like, I don't know, maybe like a non-controversial episode, I would consider for sure. Like one of their philosophy episodes. But like, I'll there are plenty of episodes. Like I actually have an article series on my Substack where I'm a year after every one liberal versus 20, for example, I'm going to like debunk the liberal. But like I noticed in the cases of like when not every single conservative that debates them, but often there's so many instances of just trying to get like a viral moment, or they're just running their mouth off, or they're not even.
Have you debunked me yet? It's been a year since Ben Shapiro.
Well, I mean, I've done a whole expose on January 6th, and I did like a whole bunch of stuff like debunking that stuff. But if
you guys debate on that. Oh wait,
we did debate that. We did debate that.
Right.
Debated a lot of new information since, but I'm considering doing an article on the debunking the woke liberals, because there are a few of y'all that said certain things, particularly on the cancel culture and
that was my side. That was me.
Yeah, I know.
Debunk Tyler K. I'd love to see
debunk Tyler K.
Sure. Yeah.
Recently featured in Rationality Rules.
Oh, really? No.
Yeah, did you not see that?
Wait, what's Rationality Rules?
He made a video talking about how awesome I did against Piers Morgan.
Oh,
no way. That's hilarious.
Yeah, he was like, you did a great job. He was like, I used facts and logic.
Well, against Piers, I do think you actually did a pretty good job.
I appreciate that.
The ability.
I think a lot of them did way better than Piers realizes. The only thing he's good at is saying, hang on. Yeah,
and I like Piers Morgan. Like,
me too.
Well, and hilariously too, Parker still did a terrible job against Piers.
I think he did. Yeah, he did. Yeah, like I think the trick with Piers, you can't give in to like any emotionality. I actually I don't want to. Maybe I'll say his name. If he sees this or anyone sees this and they can link it, totally fine. My email. Do you guys know who J.J. McCullough is?
My name sounds so familiar.
Pretty big YouTuber. He's in Canadian actually. I asked him for advice before, and he said, "Whatever you do, do not get emotional. Do not let emotion charge you." And I actually really took the heart because I'm not an emotional guy, but it's like I'm just going to be very careful with that. And I thought that was very good advice from him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you did for sure.
Yeah, and that's what that is necessary for debate. I always think that the person that comes off more emotional, and not just like more emotional, but like more like emotional towards the other person, right? Like I think being emotional about the topic can be appropriate. Like if you're talking about abortion from a pro-life stance, you get visibly upset because you believe millions of babies are being killed every year. Like that is an appropriate show of emotion and could help with the rhetoric, but it's specifically the emotion against your opponent, like calling your opponent Magikarp or that he's flopping around like Destiny did with me. But no, it's super
Destiny was
key.
rude too. I agree, Micah.
He was so rude. It's ridiculous.
That girl from your episode, Jenny, I think was her name, the who debated Piers during like the pronouns segment.
Oh yeah, I was mostly zoned out of that one, but
yeah, she also debated Candace Owens in the previous episode on feminism, and she got picked in the end to debate her again for 10 minutes. I definitely think that like you, she's definitely one of the significantly more respectful debaters. She knows how to like yield to that, and I'm actually surprised like there aren't many more like her that shows in that.
I think again the stuff that goes viral and these things are the people who are always more excited, right? Like it's just it's more interesting. But I'd like to have us run with Candace Owens on reality. Right, like what's actually going on in the world? Like that's
I guess this is another
not the dream reality.
Actually not Tucker Carlson's dream of being scratched by Satan in his sleep, like actual reality, like stuff that happens.
Well, this might be shockingly a reverse future debate where it'll be Micah and Tyler K versus me, because I'm Team Candace still. I'm Team Tucker still.
Oh my God!
I know Micah loves hearing that from me, especially.
I said I wouldn't get emotional. I will get emotional with that. That will be.
Well, I can't take Candace's source being that Charlie appeared to her in a dream. Like, you've got to admit that at least that part.
That was a weird.
Ridiculous.
I will admit that was a weird one. I like watching her. I just like watching her shows. I think that it's.
Well, she's entertaining.
Yeah.
Sure. But like, as far as like her actual commentary, I just can't stand. I just can't take it. There's only.
But what do you think of what do you think of Tucker Carlson saying that Satan scratched him in the middle of the night?
I think this is the first time I've heard that quote. I need to look that up. That's interesting dream to talk about.
Well, and I mean, obviously, as a Christian, I do believe in demonic encounters. So, like, I'm not writing it off just based.
But it should be noticed he also sleeps in a bed with dogs, so he has like his dogs.
But that's the issue, and I've heard of stories that of people encountering demons, and they make a lot more sense than what Tucker said. I'll just put it
so I don't want to disparage those who do have these interactions, but from my understanding too, they're very different from what Tucker said. Like
yes, very very different. I've never heard of a demon scratching your back before, especially when you sleep with dogs. It seems a little strange. But well, we're coming up on the hour, so I would just like to say thank you, both of you guys, for keeping it respectful. And honestly, like, I really enjoy these type of debates because these debates aren't attacking one another, but they're also both like very reasonable positions. Like, I think both sides can see the other side very clearly, and it's not super unreasonable. So appreciate that, and that's because of both of you guys. So
hey, I appreciate you hosting it. I appreciate Tyler S wanting to do the debate at all too. Like, I always have fun doing this. Like, for me, this is just for fun. Like, I'm not out here trying to be creative or anything. I just like the debate and I like talking to people.
So with that, go ahead, if you guys are watching, go ahead and like, follow, subscribe to my channel, but then also to these two guys. You can find Tyler on Instagram, and then you can find Tyler S. You can look at his Substack, Times and Headlines. And so both of those are linked in the description below. But thank you, gentlemen. And thank you guys for watching. If you've reached the end of this video, I'd love to know what you guys think. So leave a comment down below. But otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next debate. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Of course.